Welcome to Beyond Four Walls, Conversations on Affordable Housing. I'm David Dworkin, President and CEO of the National Housing Conference, the nation's oldest and broadest affordable housing coalition. Here, we'll dig deep into the pressing topics of housing in America. And while we do that, we'll also get to know some of the people who've devoted their lives to seeking tangible, impactful, and achievable solutions. In today's episode, we welcome industry stakeholders who participated in a panel earlier this year about attracting and retaining community development staff, sponsored by NeighborWorks America. What follows is a condensed version of this discussion, with the complete conversation available for viewing at nhc.org.
Today, we are excited to discuss how we as an industry can find and retain talent to join us in our efforts to make housing more affordable and help our communities reach their fullest potential. I personally often find that there aren't many people who purposefully join housing and community development professions. It seems to be a field that many of us find ourselves in accidentally and realize that it's an industry that we can turn into a fulfilling career. As an industry, we are well aware of the profound impact that housing has on every aspect of our lives. Despite this knowledge, many of our members face challenges in recruiting qualified candidates due to the niche nature of our industry. While this close-knit nature of our affordable housing community has its benefits, we also recognize the need to expand and diversify our talent pool to drive sustainable growth within the industry. Here at the National Housing Conference, we have sought to help increase this interest in housing through our Emerging Leaders in Affordable Housing membership, or ELA, which offers a $50 annual membership to young people interested in joining NHC and fosters a group of peers to help navigate their career development and explore all that the housing industry has to offer. Our panel today will discuss how they are also helping to advance recruitment and retainment in their own companies through examples of various professional development programs that can not only help to drive more interest in housing and community development careers, but also to be very purposeful in diversifying our workforce and building an employer base that reflects how all of our communities look. Our conversation today will be moderated by Marcus Cole, Director of the Future Housing Leaders at Fannie Mae. And that being said, I will invite Marcus on camera to kick us off.
Thank you all for this amazing opportunity to discuss this very important topic. As Brittany mentioned, my name is Marcus Cole, and I am the director of Fannie Mae's Future Housing Leaders program, and also responsible for Fannie Mae's early career development and internship programs here within our firm. I've been at Fannie Mae for 13 years. And in my role as the Director of Future Housing Leaders, I am responsible for strategy execution, industry-wide engagement, and a host of other things. I would like to introduce Gisela Salado, who is the Director of Leadership Development Programs at the California Coalition of Rural Housing. Ms. Salgado graduated from California's Coalition for Rural Housing Successful and Model Rural West Internship Program for Diversity in Nonprofit Housing and Community Development. Welcome, we're looking forward to seeing you today. I also have with me as a panelist, Mike Costa, who is the Learning and Development Coordinator for Tennessee Housing Development Agency, THDA, and serves as the primary coordinator and facilitator of the THDA Leadership Academy. His experience spans the military, state government, Florida and Tennessee specifically, private sector, financial services, and volunteer activities. Lastly, we have Ajax Woley, who serves as Durham's Community Land Trust as pre-development manager, following a 20-plus year career in Durham as a professional remodeler, licensed general contractor, and volunteer community organizer. So what we're going to do now is give presentations based off of our respective areas. So Fannie Mae established Future Housing Leaders, and we refer to that as FHL, to tackle the issues of the housing industry workforce diversity. Future Housing Leaders is a top-of-the-funnel recruiting service led by Fannie Mae. We offer foundational education, and we connect students from historically underrepresented groups to paid summer internships and opportunities in housing finance. Our mission is important because we aim to promote diversity in all aspects. And we accomplish this through intentional top-of-the-funnel recruiting with colleges and universities with a high diversity index. And we do this by establishing partnerships with organizations that specialize in connecting diverse college students to career opportunities. As of 2019, the Brookings Institute showed whites, Hispanics, or Latino, Blacks, and Asian Americans currently represent 60.1%, 18.5%, 12.5%, and 5.9% of the US population, respectively. However, when it comes to the population of Americans working within housing finance and real estate and related areas, those numbers shift to 71.6% white, while Hispanic or Latino, Blacks, and Asian Americans represent 9.1, 7.5, and 9.4% respectively. As you can see, this highlights a major diversity gap in the housing industry workforce and underscores the importance of an intentional diversity program such as Future Housing Leaders and other programs that we'll talk about today. We have had an opportunity to engage with over 7,500 students that have joined our talent community, the majority of which are juniors and seniors and have a GPA of 3.48. I want to call out, however, that we don't have a 3.48 GPA requirement to be a part of Future Housing Leaders. In fact, most of our industry partners, part of their hiring criteria is that folks come in with a 3.0, but what we've seen over the course of the last 2 years, specifically since 2020, is that people altogether are removing GPA as a requirement because that may prevent diverse students from getting opportunities. Over the past 5 years, Future Housing Leaders has helped our industry partners connect diverse students to a host of summer internship roles across varying functions, including single-family residential, multifamily commercial, technology, and corporate functions. We take a unique approach to our college and university engagements where we aim to institutionalize ourselves on college campuses. We achieve this by cultivating relationships with academic leaders, career services, the employment relations department, faculty, and student organizations at colleges and universities with predominantly diverse student populations. Over the past 5 years, we have developed relationships with 33 colleges and universities. We've identified HBCUs and HSIs, and we've created a mechanism to engage directly with students based off their interests and career aspirations. As I mentioned in my opening, we also have strategic partnerships. So in addition to going on college campuses, we also engage with Ripple Match, as I just mentioned, as an opportunity for us to connect with students directly. And then we have two specific organizations that we partner with to help us identify and connect with diverse students. That is Jopwell, who represents, whose goal is to advance careers for Black, Latinx, and Native American professionals, as well as the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, which gives us a presence at over 75% of HSIs in the country. We have a robust education training program where we provide the following: exclusive training resources, recognized certifications that with our partnerships from the Mortgage Bankers Association, Wall Street Prep, and Polygon Research. We have a professional network. Every single year, we establish a summer program LinkedIn group that allows students to network and engage across their peers that are going through, that are from different colleges, universities, as well as interning in different places. And we offer access to all students through the summer programs, which is open to those students, even though they may not come from our recruiting efforts. This slide is an example of the learning journeys that our summer interns go through. We have housing foundations, housing real estate finance, specifically focused on single family residential, as well as multifamily commercial. And then specifically, we dive into things that will help young students across the board, like professional acumen, where they're really learning executive presence, presentation skills, and technical acumen, where we're diving a little bit more into the skills needed to succeed, whether that be PowerPoint, Excel, some of the things that we're seeing across the Microsoft Office suites like BI tools. But this 5 learning journeys that you see in front of you are brand new this year. And this year we actually have over 800 interns across 64 different companies that are participating in these learning journeys. I've mentioned some of these partners before, but these are our strategic educational partners. MBA, the Mortgage Bankers Association, we're engaging with them right now, and 127 of the 800 or so interns that I mentioned earlier are actually participating in a single family residential course where they're learning the basics of single-family residential. Polygon Research is a great technology data science company where we leverage them to help our data scientists actually dive into housing industry data, HMDA data, so forth and so on, and they get a certification in data science that's specifically tied to housing finance. And lastly, we have Wall Street Prep, who helps our students dive into real estate modeling via use of Excel. If you notice that number that I put up earlier, the 7,500 that have participated in our talent community, what's interesting about that 7,500 is all of those students don't get jobs for whatever reason. But what we identified from talking to our industry partners is that one of the primary reasons is they don't necessarily have the skill set as identified as criteria by our employer partners. So what we did this year, we're actually running a pilot called the Future Housing Leaders Next Up program, where we have identified rising sophomores and juniors who do not have internships. And we're actually putting them through a robust 8-week program where students will receive dedicated interview prep, resume reviews, be exposed to a speaker series with leaders from the industry, and more specifically, have an opportunity to participate in our Wall Street Prep program, where they will learn real estate modeling. Our goal here is to have all 20 of these young people have internships for next year.
Again, my name is Gisela Salgado. I am the Leadership Development Director at the California Coalition for Rural Housing. And I'll start by introducing the California Coalition for Rural Housing, or CCRH for short. CCRH was formed in 1976 following a farm worker housing conference. CCRH is one of the oldest state low-income housing coalitions in the country. Through advocacy, organizing, research, technical assistance, and leadership development, our goal is to make the case for rural housing improvement and strengthen the capacity of the nonprofit and public sectors to provide affordable housing and related facilities. Our members are primarily community-based nonprofit and public developers, including the largest self-help housing producers in the United States, as well as local government officials and local activists concerned about rural quality of life. The internship program is part of our leadership development pillar. The mission of the program is to recruit, train, and retain students of color who enhance the human capacity and leadership of the rural nonprofit housing and community development field in the Pacific West. The program started in 1998 in California, and we are currently going on our 26th year in California. We have graduated over 200 students, and close to 15% are still in the field and related career fields, myself included, as Marcus mentioned earlier. The program serves as a catalyst to recruit talent with lived experience and race equity perspectives representative of widely diverse rural communities served. Given the success of our internship program model, we started expanding it to Washington and Oregon states 12 years ago, and this year for the first time to Hawaii. Our members, primarily housing developers, face challenges identifying and attracting talent with housing development experience to their organizations in rural areas. Therefore, the program's focus is on training and gaining work experience in real estate and housing development so that upon program completion, interns can be competitive for entry-level positions in the field, and specifically in housing development. Interns are recruited from universities in proximity to the host sites, and that includes community colleges. And we also seek out community leaders that can be identified, that can be part of this program. The opportunity is open to all majors, and we target students in their senior year in college from low-income, rural, and farm worker backgrounds who exhibit a commitment to social justice, to uplifting underserved communities, and demonstrate curiosity and commitment to learning. We attribute the success of our internship program model to the following key elements. So CCRH is the program administrator. Host agencies serve as internship placements, and funding is critical to make this program possible. But how did it all come together It all started with Ana Baiz Torres, a young Chicana leader in her field, one of the very few people of color 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. She and other thought leaders recognized that in order to attract and grow people of color in the field, it had to be intentional and proactive. And I think that that continues to be true even today. The leaders she engaged in this effort included CCRH Executive Director Rob Wiener, which led to CCRH becoming the administrator who solidified partnerships with host agencies, colleges, and funders. Bank of America was the initial funder who provided seed money to implement the program. As the program started to retain program graduates and develop a pipeline of emerging leaders, other banks follow, such as Wells Fargo and Citibank. NeighborWorks and Ruralist have supported the program for over a decade now, and several foundations at different times during the history of the program. In more recent years, we have also started cultivating individual donors as well. Establishing goals and expectations for both the host agency or the nonprofit housing developers and interns is critical to ensure a successful learning and on-the-job training experience. Establishing learning outcomes is also critical to ensure that interns are developing the skills necessary to be competitive in the field and that are highly transferable and desirable by nonprofit housing developers. Training is a key component of our internship program and probably of any successful internship program. We provide training at the onset of the program and 3 additional gatherings throughout the year. We draw from experts and professionals, including former interns in the field to provide training sessions. Interns gain valuable field-related technical knowledge and skills, and through these engagements, they also get to develop long-lasting friendships and a network of support. Intern retention in the field is the most significant indicator of success. Leaders in the field who come from the program are a testament to success and a new generation of leaders in rural housing. We have graduates of the program who have become directors of housing development organizations, affordable housing consultants, directors of operations, and CCRH board members. We are very proud of our program success and the great resource that it is to our nonprofit members. However, we cannot ignore the existing talent recruitment and retention challenges that rural nonprofit housing developers continue to face, including competition for talent. It's hard to compete against private housing developers in urban regions, lack of higher learning institutions in rural areas to draw talent from, developing a clear career track within nonprofits, which hardly exists, and new young talent can become frustrated without clear direction and a path. Post-program support, ongoing education, coaching, mentorship, which is incredibly valuable to become a more effective leader in the field. Identifying aptitude is an inexact science, and nonprofits feel disappointed investing in talent who may not stay at their organization and move on. And losing graduates to other opportunities in higher education. So CCRH is working on addressing some of the challenges mentioned by developing a new fellowship program, which will provide advanced technical, finance, and project management skills to mid-career people of color in the rural housing field, and at the same time training to managers and executive level staff on organizational change management, to assess and define the type of work culture that can more effectively support retention and recruitment of a new generation of talent. At CCRH, we remain open to replicating our proven internship program model and to deepening our commitment to advance racial equity and inclusion in our field and our sector.
Thank you, Gisela. Glad to have a chance to talk about our THDA Leadership Academy. We launched our Academy in 2015 with our first leadership group. And the way we work it is we run it through a calendar year, and we take a group of emerging leaders through the year with different learning opportunities. We did that every year from 2015 to 2019, and we do it in person. But we're a small organization. We decided in 2019 that we're under 300 people total, and we were becoming a little bit saturated. So we decided that we would wait and skip a year, which worked out extremely well because, as everybody remembers, 2020 was our first COVID year. So that was our year off. Then 2021, we ran it remotely, decided to come back this year, and everybody involved in it said, doing it remotely or doing it hybrid, we lose so much depth that we're going to do it in person. So we're doing it all in person this year. We wanted to create a pipeline of emerging leaders. We wanted to provide mentoring for our emerging leaders or anybody in a leadership track or anybody that wants to consider being a leader in the agency. And what we found was that everybody is going to exercise leadership in some role or another, whether it's formally or informally. And that's one of the benefits that grew out of the academy, is that people can look at the people coming through it. They can see their change, but they can also see ways that those people bring out leadership qualities in other people within the organization. So we created a selection process with an application. Our executive director will make a selection. We take about 10 to 12 people a year. We put them in a group for the year, and then we divide them into work groups, 3 work groups, and we assign mentors. Now, our mentors are our chiefs right now. So we have people basically right below our executive director serving as our mentors. Before we kick off the year, we use a couple of assessments. The HBDI is a whole brain thinking model that we use, and everybody takes an assessment and then they get feedback in a session. And then we do the Hogan assessment, which is built against the THDA competencies. We do what we call symposiums, and this is our learning opportunities for the year when we come together and we'll cover a specific topic and a competency that we have. We take those groups also throughout the year and have them work on a team project. Now, this is anything from the THDA strategic plan that we might want to implement or work on. So it could be something brand new. It could be an idea that's coming together. Sometimes it's an old idea that they bring back and they go through it, and they'll present this eventually to a leadership team and say, hey, here's something that we may or may not want to do, or why we might not want to do something. And the benefit is it lets them interact with other people within the agency, other people within the state of Tennessee, and other outside partners that we have. So it's building connections, and that's one of the benefits that we knew was there, but we didn't realize the impact of it. Here's how it runs, what you've seen. Here's how it should go in the afternoon, and then we'll go in and see the final board process in the afternoon. And it gives them a way to look at planning and critical thinking. So you're building some different skills, and you're seeing not just what goes on, but sort of the why. Why do we do it a certain way? And it gives them ideas for formatting and doing things on their own. And of course, at the end, we want to have some kind of recognition. Starting in February are really where we get into the learning. And this is the part that I think they enjoy the most. There's a lot of time and dialogue back and forth. We like to do a half day to half day. We typically use a state park because we can use their conference room and their hotel facilities at a fairly decent cost. So we would come in, say, Thursday afternoon, have an afternoon training session on some of our competencies, and then take a break, meet for dinner, have some, happy hour time, play some games, then come back in the morning on Friday, have another training session, and then break at lunch, and then go on home. So we'll do that starting in February through October. Now, that's the way we want the year to run. We got to change the schedule. We need to move facilitators around. It doesn't matter if it's our CFO or somebody outside that we're bringing in. Everybody really pitches in and helps. And I think that builds something that other people start to see. They start to see those working relationships, and that's another touch to the rest of the agency. So people see that, and they want to be a part of making something successful. And everybody wants to see that success, and they want to be a part of it. So it builds an internal culture, and then people outside see that. We see that throughout the state. We're part of the state of Tennessee, and other agencies will, we build a reputation, and they will look at us and say, hey, we want to do what they're doing, or we want to do it that way. And again, I think it comes back to building that connection, letting people contribute and help us with the academy. We use past graduates. We use people that haven't gone through it yet, and everybody having that hand in it, again, builds a connection. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. I want to pass it to Ajax so he can talk about leaders in real estate.
Thanks, Mike, and good day, everyone. My name is Ajax Woolley. I'm here in Durham, North Carolina, and I want to talk about people a little bit. So 5 years after deciding to make a conscious mid-career pivot myself, I was a construction professional for 20 years in the private sector. I'm 1 year in to dedicating myself full-time to affordable housing and community development professionally. I work as the pre-development manager for Durham Community Land Trustees. We go by DCLT, so I'll refer to us that way moving forward. We're a nonprofit developer providing permanently affordable rental and homeownership opportunities. Since 1987, we've utilized the shared equity model to make homeownership more accessible while providing a foundation for economic security to low and moderate income residents in Durham. We've created 70 land trust homeowners in Durham, and we currently self-manage nearly 200 rental units across 8 neighborhoods. So within a few months of committing myself to the exploration of a pivot, I began to discover a new kind of public life, a new way of being in community. It absolutely transformed my experience of my professional self and my vision for my future in ways that I think are universally compelling. I wish I had started younger in some ways. And in short, it's really all about people, which is, I think, a truth that each of us comes to as individuals at different seasons in life. So DCLT is also a chartered member of NeighborWorks America, sponsor for this discussion, and a training provider for a pilot cohort that I applied for and joined last fall, titled Advancing Leaders in Real Estate. It's a great opportunity through which I've received a dedicated executive mentor with specific expertise in the area of the field I'm pursuing, namely the community land trust model. I've also been introduced to a terrific cross-section of colleagues here on the East Coast that I feel confident I'll know for many years moving forward. And I'm particularly proud, and I feel extremely privileged to serve a women-led, minority-led organization with a powerful vision here in Durham, where we have a very complicated and challenging legacy of housing segregation and environmental racism. But because DCLT is a direct service provider, to prepare for this discussion and just make a brief presentation, I decided to start from home and talk with my office colleagues, some of whom are early mid-career. And I knew a little bit about their inroads to our firm, but this was an opportunity to go a little deeper, and here's what I learned. And I'll just note in terms of diversity for these 3 folks, 2 are women, 2 are Latino-Latina, and all 3 are bilingual in English and Spanish. Roughly 1 apiece is in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. So our senior maintenance tech worked for years in a community school in New York City. When he relocated his family here to North Carolina in Durham, he began working for another school here and quickly encountered some distinctly racist management practices under a nearly all-white and white-led organization. And he found his DCLT job through an advertised job search and says he enjoys our more equitable company culture while also being able to serve the community. Our assistant property manager was a case manager for a nonprofit serving domestic violence victims who also had a passion and a curiosity for real estate. She found DCLT through an advertised job search, but her search was very intentional. So she was looking for a position that would blend her love of helping people with potential for a career advancement in real estate. And finally, our program assistant, who binds together our administrative operations, she found her position upon returning from teaching English overseas 2 years out of college. And she was advised by a friend here in Durham who worked for a sister nonprofit to email her cover letter and resume directly to DCLT. And she was hired as a result of taking that chance. She said she was experiencing the affordable housing crisis here in Durham from a new perspective as compared to her parents who also were here. And she wanted to be part of the solution. I think what matters most is the desire to work with people, to serve the community, and to really want it. And we also need that organizational leadership that understands the specific challenges of the neighborhoods we're serving and working with. And of course, our organizations need an expansion of targeted funding and network opportunities for talent recruitment, career development, so that we can create sustainable teams. We need small organizations like ours to be able to withstand the economic changes that result in turnover. We need people to stick together over time. That's how we're going to tackle some of these really profound challenges we're all facing in our communities. And that's all I'll say. I'm going to return it back to the group.
Thank you, all of the panelists that have discussed their areas today. The work you all are doing is much needed, and I'm truly excited to be, leading this panel discussion with you all today. I really look forward to working with you all and figure out ways that we can continue to collaborate. At the very least, continue to spread this message about how important it is to be intentional about diversity, equity, inclusion, and what it means to hire. So thank you all, and really looking forward to diving into this. So I've got a few questions here. So the first question, and Ajax, you alluded to this, but how did you all personally get into the field?
I grew up on Section 8 housing. I experienced the lack of affordable housing early on in life. My parents and I immigrated from Mexico, and it was just really hard. We experienced overcrowded housing conditions, inadequate. It was challenging. And so for me, coming into the field was a calling more than anything. And when I went to college, I was studying business economics. So when I saw this internship, it just seemed like literally a sign from the universe. You got to do this, right? And it was just such a perfect opportunity to kind of join my interest in doing community work and also be able to utilize the skills that I was learning, or at least the knowledge that I was attaining through college. So I participated in the internship program. I went through it for 1 year with my host agency, a nonprofit housing developer. And then after that, I stayed with that nonprofit housing developer for 3 years before coming to the California Coalition for Rural Housing.
I'm going to move to Mike next for the same question. How did you personally get into this field?
Well, I have to use the big answer, which is by chance, right? I didn't really know anything about housing. I mean, before I got into training, because I'd already, I think before I was 28, I'd probably received more than most people will get all their lifetime. And so I gravitated to that. I left it for a while. And I think I would equate it to like job hunting. You tend to find it through other people more than you do seeing a posting or seeing something somewhere. And somebody in a training organization told me, hey, look at this position at THDA, because I was looking to go back to where training, instead of where I'd been before, it was just a little piece of something. I was looking for it to be the bigger piece. Mm-hmm. So they mentioned THDA, and I knew somebody from a Toastmasters group that had been at THDA. And I asked her about it, and she said, well, they're making some changes. They're doing some good things. So that let me kind of keep pursuing the position. And so that's how it came about.
Ajax, I know you talked a little bit about this during your pivot, but would you like to elaborate on how you got into the field? Is there anything that you would like to highlight?
I think for me, the important thing to share is that, so I was self-employed, owned a company. My clientele was a distinctly privileged, homeowner class. Had a great, a great run. Not extremely lucrative, but I met a bunch of great people, did a bunch of really good work. And after a time, I began to think more about what my legacy might be and what the meaning behind my work might look like at middle age and beyond. And in 2017, when The Color of Law was published, and I read that book, I think it helped me understand some things that I already knew deep down. I had only ever had one Black homeowner family inquire about my services at a higher level of project price point in essentially 15 years.
Mhm.
And reading The Color of Law helped me understand the structural reasons for that in a way that no other lens previously had done. And I got extremely curious about housing justice and the history of segregation, especially in our city, but across America. In order for me to contribute in my community to issues around housing justice, I need to bring to the table what it is that my strengths are, and that's experience in residential construction. And it's also, I hope, a little bit of willingness to follow and a little bit of humility around the question of who ought to be in leadership in these organizations.
Thank all three of you for your very powerful answers. I'll take a stab at answering this question as well. So I personally got into the field similar to everyone that's spoken already. This is very personal to me. I grew up on the east side of Buffalo, New York, and in my community, it was we had homeowners, a lot of renters, but the economic development and the intersectionality between those was sparse. But I also had family that lived in Chicago and New York City and LA. And as I traveled to visit my family as a youth, I would always compare the differences of the cities with Buffalo. And so that was, and I was always asking myself, what's the difference and what happened? And even more personally, my grew up in a single family home. My mother owned a home, but really didn't have financial awareness as it relates to home ownership. And she really struggled, and we really struggled. I was fortunate enough to play college football at a Division I level, but I was taking courses in urban and public policy and got my master's in urban planning with a focus on community development. Actually did my thesis on a Hope 6 comparison between, Buffalo and Chicago. And that just blew my mind with some of the things that I saw, and, ties back to some of the structural things that we see in this country from a governmental and policy standpoint. Ajax, I'm going to direct this one to you, but how do your employees or interested interns, how do they find your company? And two-part question, what paths lead to a career in your field?
So I'm a manager, I'm not a director, and I'm not responsible for recruitment and hiring. I mentioned the three folks, my colleagues in the office. Two were Indeed job searchers, and so publicly advertised positions, and one was a direct inquiry from the individual to the organization. I think that what I would say is that there is a lot of grassroots interest in what we do, and not a lot of inroads or opportunities at the local level. So local funding is very limited for expanding small nonprofit organizations. We're very useful to municipal government for, sort of passing through funds and so on and so forth. But the particular network that we have here, there's only one community land trust in Durham. In Durham, we have a sister org in Chapel Hill. And, I think that what we offer is a professional environment with all the benefits of a grassroots and sort of company culture that has that minority-led and women-led vision. And so one of the things that people don't necessarily initially understand is we're in real estate.
Yes.
We're not in community organizing. We're not in, it's not an outreach program. We're not in social services. We provide housing opportunities. And there is some reach into those other areas, but it's very limited. We have very limited funding to address that. We really have our hands full creating and maintaining affordable housing opportunities.
I'd like to direct the next question to you. And this is, how do we educate young people, college or otherwise, about our field and develop a pipeline for talent?
I think that one of the challenges that we have as a sector, as a field, is exactly some of the things that Age talked about, which is demystifying this field. What is this all about? So even when I talk to students, right, about affordable housing development, a lot of people often associate nonprofits with direct social services provision. I don't think that people think immediately real estate development and nonprofit organizations. Those seem to not go together. However, part of what we do is educating the public and actually educating, right, universities, professors, having those relationships, or actually cultivating relationships with colleges and universities, and really bringing more light to the sector as what we really do and what this work is about. And then providing the internship program as an opportunity to have an entry into this field, because it's such a niched field.
One of the things that I learned when I was going on campus and engaging with students from just talking about the industry is that students actually have no idea what the housing industry, regardless if it is, debt, equity, or, affordable housing development, they have no idea what it is. I was literally having conversations with young people where I was like, well, do you know what the housing industry is? And they would respond, well, yeah, I want to sell houses. I want to flip houses. I want to do what Chip and Joanna Gaines does on HGTV. I think they have their own network now, so they're actually pretty good. But I would say that's not it. This is an opportunity for you to connect with something bigger. And I think as we're engaging with young people now, particularly Gen Z, who is really looking to connect to a mission and things like that, we have to continue to highlight the work that all of you all are leading. So, Mike, this next question is directed to you. What are the current recruitment challenges for hiring and retaining staff, particularly diverse staff?
I think it comes down to where you're reaching out. And again, are we reaching out to the right organizations? If you're looking for an IT person, that's going to be different than if you're looking for somebody to work with community programs or another program. So I still think it comes back to building those connections professionally and having those people do some of the work for us, so that if somebody's at a conference and they're talking, they can say, hey, here's what THDA is building. You guys should look over there, if you want to make a change, or not that we want to poach anybody, but you know what I mean? People, they talk and you share that information and then it propagates out.
Thank you for that. And if I may, I would like to add my perspective as well, just on this question. Future Housing Leaders is a very unique entity, as I mentioned. We're kind of in the middle. So we have our industry partners. We've had well over 100 industry partners that range from, top lenders like JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, all the way down to mom and pop nonprofit on the single family side. And then certainly we've had a range of Fannie Mae DUS lenders on the multifamily side. So we have an opportunity, I have an opportunity to understand true recruitment challenges from a host of employers. And one of the things that I think, Mike, you touched on this, there's two components, right? There's the applicant component, like how do we drive more diverse applicants to the top of the funnel? And then there's the candidate piece. What we realize is that we can drive applicants to the top of the funnel and they can be diverse, but a number of those applicants don't make it to becoming a candidate, right? They fall out for whatever reason. And a lot of that is hiring managers are still looking at, I want folks from this school with this mindset, with this pedigree. And I think we have to start to change those conversations and actually start to measure where people fall out of the funnel and why. Moving on here, Gisela, I'm going to ask you to participate in this one, but how can organizations who are interested in starting an internship or development programs get started? Some of the questions that come to mind are like, how would you finance a program and make it sustainable? How do you connect with organizations and connect with colleges and so forth?
What I will say for those organizations that may not have such a program right now and want to get started, I think that there are some key things that have to be on the table for whatever internship, whatever program they create. And that is commitment and buy-in from leadership. And Mike, you actually talked about that. That's really important because, right? So to gain momentum, 100%. Synergy, make it successful, there has to be buy-in from the team, from everyone, be on board to really train and provide the time and investment to bring new talent on. I will say you can start by building those connections and relationships with your local college, your community college.
Mike, I'm going to direct this one to you, and I'll jump in here as well. But this question is really about, competition and how can the nonprofit sector compete with the private sector and the public sector. And this comes from a competition standpoint of attracting talent, retaining talent, all those things. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's really a competition. I think it's more saying, this is what we have, this is what we are, and letting those people gravitate. I mean, I've been fortunate to work in some places that had a really good reputation and people wanted to be there. And I look at it more the other way around. If we create, kind of like my executive director is a baseball fan, so if he sees this, maybe I'll get some credit. But it's like, if you build it, they will come. If you create something, people will gravitate to that. They'll see it and they'll say, I want a piece of that.
Thank you, Mike. I think great points that you raised. My perspective is I had the pleasure of starting my career in a nonprofit organization, and I'm not sure if Jessica Venegas is on the call, but she was she hired me, and we worked for an organization called Community Preservation and Development Corporation. Low housing tax credits. Our mission was to preserve affordable housing. It was amazing. But from a college student, because of the work that my mother did in the Buffalo, New York community, I wanted to start my career off for a nonprofit organization because I wanted to, before I started a family, to really get hands-on with the residents and people of communities that we were trying to serve. So that was great for me. I was able to leverage that experience, and I ended up in Fannie Mae for the last 13 years. Now that from a recruiting role, looking at some of our students, I do think that there is competition because there's a war on talent, right? We all want best of the best. And one of the things that I think for those who are interested in real estate, they often want to do real estate investing, and they want to work on Wall Street and really get that component, and often overlook the value of the nonprofit sector or the public sector. So I think, to your point, I think one has to relate to mission. It has to be tied to something, particularly if you're going to start off nonprofit. I'm fortunate enough that Fannie Mae is a very mission-driven company, so I can connect to that, and I can connect all the work that my team does back to that. And I'll end with this. I think now is a pivotal time in American history. There's so much going on from what we're seeing, from the Supreme Court and decisions that are being made. So with that, I think it's our job to remain steadfast and intentional about these efforts. And I think by doing so, you can take a lot from what the panelists said here today. So thank you all for your great conversation and your insight.
Well, thank you, everybody. That was a great panel. And I am David Dworkin. I'm president and CEO of the National Housing Conference. For those of you who don't know me, this is so important. And especially when we think about expanding diversity, we really need to expand our vision of where we're recruiting from. And I will just say, in my own case, I was a foreign policy expert and lost my job in a political administration, and was asked if I would be willing to go to Fannie Mae by one of my mentors at the State Department. And I was like, the only thing I know about mortgages is I just got my first one. And I was quite sure I was going to be going back into foreign policy, and fell in love with housing. And I've never looked back. So I just have to say that housing is very sticky, and we can bring really great people in from different places, and they're like, oh yeah, this is great. This is tangible. This is mission oriented. And I appreciate all the work all of you are doing, and all of our listeners. Thank you for listening to this edition of Beyond Four Walls. You can visit the National Housing Conference at nhc.org. There you can learn more about affordable housing policies, affordability challenges throughout the nation on our Paycheck to Paycheck database, and explore membership in NHC for you or your organization. We appreciate your interest and look forward to working with you in the future. Until next time, I'm David Dworkin, NHC's President and CEO, wishing you a great day.